Hello and welcome to today's video on distraction and inattention. We know over time the major causes of road accidents ends on this concept that is distraction and inattention. And I know in one of the videos I made earlier, we already explained or we treated the topic human errors and taking into consideration some other violations and other concepts under that. But today's video is just going to be focusing on distraction and inattention. But when we come to think of it, in our daily usage of those two words, distraction and inattention, we can we can conclude by saying, well, they mean the same thing. Yeah, maybe in distraction and attention, it's also the same. And in most cases, I know that we tend to use them interchangeably or synonymously, which probably means they mean the same thing. But based on their origin and based on the concept under driving, we believe that it might be a little bit different. Like there might be a little bit difference in that. But when it comes to distraction and inattention as a related concept in attention, we believe that they are two different they are two different words with two different meanings, even when they are closely related or they kind of mean something similar. Distraction, we believe that it refers to the external factors that pulls an individual's attention away from a primary task. I'm making this video right now. If I decide to get a call that calls for my attention and I decide to turn my head to check who is calling, then I'm distracted. So when there is an external factor that causes me to pull away from the primary task, and the primary task in question here is this video. So anything that calls my attention of which is external, we believe that to be a distraction. But inattention, on the other hand, it is believed to be the internal factors that can pull an individual's attention away from the primary task. But the internal factors or the internal states that we are talking about in question here has to be mental, not necessarily a thing like maybe the phone, or maybe probably trying to pick up my phone to reply a text or something. It has to be a mental state, the mental state. So that is why it is not just a internal factor but also an internal state that pulls an individual's attention away from a primary task. So despite the fact that these two words are used interchangeably, we know distracted driving and inattentive driving are two different concepts. So when we're bringing it into the aspect of driving, distracted driving and inattentive driving, we believe that they are two different concepts. Now, distracted driving occurs when something takes a motorist's attention or a driver's attention away from driving. That is what we call distracted driving. But in the concept of intensive driving, we believe intensive driving is a form of distracted driving. And that means it is based on the cognitive distraction that takes your mind off driving. When an individual daydreams, maybe while driving, or maybe probably when you're trying to reminisce while driving home, you're trying to reminisce what had happened at work on that particular day, and you're just trying to replay the whole event in your mind, we can say that is more like an inattentive driving, because the cognitive it's a form of a cognitive distraction compared to when we are being distracted by things around, which is a distracted driving. So under distracted driving, we're going to be looking into under the distracted driving, we're going to be looking at the types, and then we have the cognitive, which is more like an inattentive driving. So in this slide, we say that a condition where a driver's attention is diverted away from driving tasks due to an internal or external stimulus is called distraction. So that is the general concept of distraction. But when we're dealing with distracted driving, distracted driving, as we said, is a form of driving whereby an individual's attention is taken off the primary task, which is the driving, by things that are around the person or the driver. But in when we're looking into inattentive driving, we said it is a type of distracted driving, which is more cognitive in nature. And we can see it might be as a result of being absent minded, maybe drowsiness. All these are what makes up inattentiveness. So we are going to be looking into the types of distraction. So we have various types of distraction. So the first one is the visual distraction. When we're saying something is visual, that means it has to do with the eyes. That is the moment an individual or a driver or a motorist takes their eyes off the road. When they take their eyes off the road, that means something that has distracted them by through which they decided to take their eyes off the road. That is what we call a visual distraction. That is, the distraction is coming in form of their visuals. It's coming in form of what they are seeing. It might be as a result of getting a text from maybe your wife or getting a text from someone, and you decide to pick up the phone. Like, oh, who texted me? The moment you take your eyes off the road and checking your phone, then that will mean that is a type of distraction called a visual distraction. And it might also be as a result of, let me quickly check the Google map. Where am I? Where I am, and where am I going to? Trying to navigate your way across. Then that is also a form of visual distraction. Like I said, also it might also be as a result of maybe a crash or an accident that happened nearby. Maybe there is a crash beside you, and you decide to turn to know what is happening or to look at what is happening. In the process of doing that, the driver or the motorist has already taken their attention off the road and looking out at what is happening. As a result of that, taking their eyes off the road means is a type of distraction, and that type of distraction is what we call the visual distraction. So we can see here visual, yes, eyes off the road. Anything that takes your eyes off the road is what we call a visual distraction, and you can see the examples. Then the second type of distraction is what we call the manual distraction. This type of distraction has to do with when the driver decides to take their hands off the wheel. I think this happens a lot, most especially when drivers get to the point of traffic intersection, and maybe there is a red light, that decide to use that period to, okay, I think I was taking something, or I need to quickly sign a document. I want to use that period to eat something. Within that period, they take their hands off the wheel, or maybe in the process of trying to reach out for something, or maybe while driving or not driving, the fact that you are on the road, irrespective of whether there is a red light, you are meant to keep your eyes on the road. And any point at which the driver or the motorist decides to take their hands off the wheel, then that is what we call a manual distraction. It is a type of distraction that happens when a driver takes their hands off the wheel to attend to any secondary task. The primary task, the moment a driver is on the road, is to keep their eyes on the road and drive. So the moment that task is being it is being another task is taking over that task, and when we know that distraction has occurred, and that form of distraction whereby you take their hands off the wheel is what we call the manual distraction, or the manual distraction. Then the third type of distraction we have here is what we call the cognitive distraction. Earlier we were explaining distraction and inattention, and we said inattention is more like a concept in distraction that is cognitive in nature, that is taking your mind. So this is not just about the visual, this is not about the manual that is hands off the wheel, but when an individual, or when the driver, or the motor the cyclist, or the person is absent minded. That is the word. When the person is absent minded is in a mental sense. There are sometimes you see someone driving and their mind is has wandered off. Their concentration or their mind is not on the road. Maybe consciously, subconsciously, their mind is not there. Maybe they are thinking about something else, or maybe, let's say, for example, an individual who has just been fired from his workplace and is driving home. We know there is high tendency that the person will suffer from this type of distraction, which is the cognitive distraction, that is replaying the event that happened at work. Or let's say, for example, an individual who has just been robbed at gunpoint and decides to get in his car and driving home. There is a sense of this type of distraction coming into play, because the person will be absent minded to a certain extent due to the event that had just happened. And some of the examples we have here, also further examples, is maybe daydreaming, deep conversations, or emotional distress. So there are some cases where someone can be distracted even by having conversation with the person beside, or the fellow passenger, and that might take their mind off the primary task, which is to keep their eyes on the road and drive. The fourth type of distraction is the auditory distraction. And when we know that when you say something is auditory, then we know that it has to do with it is sound related. And this can be as a result of loud music, it can be as a result of voice assistance, it can be as a result of alert. There are some times that even some of these voice assistant systems we have in the vehicle that helps to navigate, it can be a form of distraction. Let's say, for example, we know, or as a driver is driving home, he knows that he is meant to keep the through lane, but the voice assistant in the vehicle is telling him to take the right turn lane. As a result of that, it can cause a little bit of distraction because he himself he knows that he's meant to follow the through lane, not the right lane. As a result of that, distraction from the auditory distraction can bring about this maybe a form of being can affect the driver in this sense. So texting while driving is especially dangerous because it combines all types of distraction. Someone can say, yeah, texting while driving. When we think of it again, it combines all of them. Let's take it from the visual. When I decide to pick up my phone, okay, let me when I decide to pick up my phone, I'm driving right now, and I decide to pick up my phone. Oh, I have a text. Not only have I click the first part of the type of distraction, that is the visual, because my eyes is not on the road, my eyes is already on the phone. So that means the first one is checked. Then when it comes to manual, hands off the wheel, my hand is already on my phone, that means it's off the wheel. Then the cognitive, definitely my mind is not going to be present there because my mind and attention is already on the phone. And this means that texting while driving is especially dangerous. It's very dangerous, and it's not the least, though it is not the most dangerous, but we have almost every form of distraction or inattention that occurs while driving. They are all regarded as being dangerous. So so we have the distraction and inattention can lead to, we know it can lead to increased reaction time. When we are talking about the reaction time, if I am absent minded, or let's say when a driver is attentive while driving, the moment the vehicle ahead of that particular driver stops, maybe without any form of um, showing off, maybe the light, or in any way just stops abruptly, because I am attentive while driving, I can easily also, press the brake and also react to that. But when I am distracted, or maybe in the process I know that there is no way, where this is a highway or probably everyone is moving, there is no way something could happen where a driver can just stop abruptly and I'm just on my phone trying to do my thing. The moment that happens, when a driver does that, or maybe as a result of an accident on the road, the time at which it will take me to react to that situation would be much more compared to if I had my attention on the road. So that means inattention or distraction can increase the reaction time. And when we're talking about the reaction time, someone might say, reaction time, that means there's still enough time. No, no, no. Even a split second is enough for an accident to happen. A split second. We're going to be looking into a video that will portray more into this, just something, just like an overview of everything I'm going to be having discussing in later in the slide. Another thing is missed signals or hazard. We know there are a lot of traffic signals on the road, and there are some of them that helps us to know if there is an hazard, or there is maybe there is a yield sign on the road, anything that could help us navigate through successfully on the road. But if an individual or a driver, or if I'm putting myself in the situation, or I am distracted, maybe due to any form of distraction that could be, or inattentive, then I might have missed maybe the signal that is telling me that there is an accident ahead, or maybe an hazard, or a signal of an hazard that has been placed on the road for me to know that okay, something is happening here. In most cases, we know that when there is there is an accident on a particular part of the road, maybe there is always a traffic sign that is being placed to alert drivers that are coming. But when I am inattentive or when I am distracted, as a result of that, it can lead to another form of crash because of this form of distraction or being distracted. So it can allow me miss the signals or any form of hazard on the road. Another thing that distraction or inattention can lead to is lane deviation or swerving. So it's it's very quite easy for when you're driving and probably, let's just say for example, going back to my phone and picking up the phone again, when you're with your phone and you're driving, there is high chances that you might swerve off the road because your attention is on the phone and you only have one hand on the wheel. There is high chances that one might swerve off, and in the process of swerving off the lane, it might cause or probably lead to a crash with the vehicles on the other lane. And this is another thing that distraction and inattention can lead to. Then another point here is poor speed control. It won't help us to be able, or it won't help the vehicles or the driver to be able to maintain the required speed because their attention is not on the driving but on other things that might have distracted the driver or the cyclist or whoever that is driving us at that particular time. So these some of these factors that have been mentioned, we can say yes, we're talking about the drivers who are driving vehicles, and we're talking about the motorcycles, or we're talking about the bicyclists, or but sometimes it also has to do with some pedestrians. It also has to do with road users, all road users in general. Attention, there's any form of distraction can lead to any form of crash or an accident. Even if a driver, let's say for example, a driver is distracted and driving, but as a result of that is distraction, and also we have a pedestrian who is trying to cross the road, is also distracted, not seeing the vehicle coming, then but it can that kind of accident could have been avoided even if the driver is inattentive, but the pedestrian is attentive enough to see the vehicle coming, then he can decide to move off the road to prevent clashing or colliding with that particular vehicle. So the next point here is failure to yield or stop. It will be very difficult to stop at any point if the driver is distracted, and we know very well what happens when there is a failure to yield or stop. Then it can lead to a crash. We have a lot of psychological theories behind distraction, and we're going to be looking into, I think, about two of those psychological theories behind distraction. One of it is what we call the multiple resources theory. So, the multiple resources theory, according to Wakins 1984, it says that humans have limited attention. What is this theory actually suggesting? It suggests that the ability to perform two cognitive tasks simultaneously is dependent not just on the amount of the mental resources required to complete each task based on the level of difficulty and desired performance level of each task, but rather on the type of mental resources needed to process each task. Now, this concept itself highlighted that different tasks demand different types of processing resources, such that two-time sharing tasks that draw on two different information processing resources may be completed more efficiently than two-time sharing tasks that demand the same type of processing resources. Let's take an example. When you're listening to a podcast, maybe on your phone, and simultaneously as you're listening to the podcast, you are also listening to a radio, we know that it will be very difficult to perform effectively, that is performing both tasks effectively, since the two tasks involve auditory processing. You cannot be listening to a podcast and also be listening to a radio. The two of them cannot, those two tasks cannot be performed simultaneously because they require auditory processing. So it's going to be very difficult. And that is what multiple resources theory tries to explain. Even in the case where you want to perform multiple tasks, it cannot be done when they are both have the same processing requirement. And for the case of this example of the podcast and the radio, we can see they both require the auditory processing. The same thing with while driving. We know a driver is expected to keep their two hands on the wheel while driving. But in the process of taking their hands off the wheel and picking up the phone to reply to a message, we know it is going to be very difficult because it requires what their hands on the wheel. So when that is not done, there's no way you can have your hands on the wheel and also have your hands pressing the phone, and that will make it very difficult. And that is what multiple resources theory is trying to explain. The next point here we have the situation awareness by Hensley. He says in the case of situation here, situation awareness, when we say something is a concept of it's called a situational awareness, is a concept in human factor that describes the level of understanding an individual, that is the level an individual has about its environment and how it changes. That is what we call the situation awareness. If I step out in the this in maybe let's say if I step out around, if I step out around 3 p.m. and I notice that it's very dark around 3 p.m., I can sense that there is a changes in my environment, which shouldn't be, because 3 p.m. should come with maybe it should be a bit sunny, if not really sunny, but at least it should be sunny by 3 p.m. But when I step out around 3 p.m. and I notice that it's all dark or it's all cloudy, definitely I can process that, or I can come to the conclusion that it's either it's about to rain, or maybe the weather just decided to change drastically today. So, but the first thing that I can think of within my mind as at that time is that maybe it's about to rain. So that is the same thing with when it comes to the situation awareness. Situation awareness is talking about the ability to perceive, and that perceiving has to do with, because it believes that it operates on three concepts. That is the ability to perceive, the ability to comprehend, and also the ability to predict. It is not enough for a driver to be able to perceive what is happening around him, but he also needs to be able to comprehend, that is the meaning of what is going on. If a driver notices that maybe every other drivers ahead of him, they're turning back, and he doesn't have a good understanding of what is going on. Number one is that what is happening, he's able to perceive something is happening and comprehending that why could it be, what could be happening on the road that requires all these vehicles turning back. So the ability to be able to comprehend that will also be able to help him predict the future status of what is going on the road. So the situation awareness, all these things can be only be done when when the driver is not distracted or inattentive. It says distraction reduces a driver's ability, because when the driver is distracted, it will be very difficult to be able to pinpoint or to be able to follow the concept, the three concepts here under situation awareness, and that is the ability to perceive, comprehend, or predict. Is it a driver that is on the phone that wants to predict or that wants to perceive that there is something going on the road, or is it a driver that is busy trying to pick something from the bus seat, that knows whether a child has run is on the road, that it needs to stop the vehicle as at that time. But as a result of the fact that there is no situation awareness according to the theory by Hensley in 1995, it will make it very difficult for the driver to be able to perceive what is going on the road, to be able to comprehend what it means, and to be able to predict future status, that is what to do next. And that is the reason why this concept, this cycle, that is why it's one of the psychological theories on the distraction. So we have some cases here, some case examples to explain more on the concept of distraction and inattention. It says texting trucker crash, that is in the United States in the 2010s, says a truck driver was texting while driving and crashed into multiple vehicles, killing a family. We can see the consequences of that distraction. Just that split seconds of picking the phone to text can lead to um, this kind of disaster. And leading to the loss of life of a whole family. And surveillance data show 24 seconds of distraction before the crash. Like I said, it doesn't have to take that long. It doesn't have to be a minute. It doesn't. Someone might just say, "Let me just drop a message of okay that I've acknowledged the message someone sent to me on the phone." In the process of just picking the phone, 1 second, 2 seconds, just to press okay, that's about 5 seconds. It takes split seconds for an accident or a crash to happen, and that can lead to a greater consequence. Just the case of what we can see here in this study. So we also have the inattention subtypes. That is also the inattention as classified by Reagan et al. 2011. So which is quite a bit similar to what we have been talking about. It says here task inattention, that is failing to monitor the road or vehicle. That is when their mind is wandering off. The moment your mind is wandering off, it will be very difficult to monitor the road or the vehicle. And that is one of the types of inattention subtypes as according to Reagan. We also have misprioritizing attention. When you are focusing on something of low priority, maybe your mind is, maybe as a driver is driving by, he saw a billboard and he keeps thinking within his mind what the whole thing on the billboard is all about, or maybe probably the kind of pictures on the billboard. The moment his mind wanders off in the process, that means he has misprioritized his attention. The attention that is meant to be on the road is already in his cognitive state of thinking about giving an interpretation to what the billboard is all about. Then on inattentional mind wandering, that is the cognitive fatigue or boredom. Sometimes when driving you can get bored while driving, and as a result of that, your mind might wander off into some things that are unknown. I think it's under the road design that is one of the reasons why we have curves while driving, in order to keep the mind of the driver attentive while driving. We're going to be looking into the road design in another video, but the ability to keep their mind active, to keep their mind going, not to get too attached or too bored when driving and thinking it's just a straight road, let me just keep driving. It gets to a point where they lose their attention while driving, and that is this type of inattention, which is unintentional mind wandering, which can lead to cognitive fatigue, which can be as a result of cognitive fatigue or boredom. Then the fourth point here is divided attention. When you're trying to do two demanding tasks at once, it's also another type of inattention subtypes according to Reagan et al. So we have the prevention and mitigation strategies. So what are the possible strategies that has been developed over the years? We have the technological solution, and this we can see over the years the introduction of visual cameras that helps in form of driving detection, more like a distraction or a driving detection, to help to know when a driver is sleeping, maybe a driver's eyes are not on the road. There is a camera, or there is an AI or technologies that has been developed over the years that helps to prevent and mitigate against this type of distraction. We also have education and awareness, which is very much important. The ability to keep creating awareness about road user keeping their eyes on the road, because it is an aspect that cannot be oversaid. It has to be re-emphasized at every given opportunity, at every point in time. Then the legal measures, that is knowing that there is going to be consequences for the action when it happens. When the strict consequences is in place, then it will help to reduce the chances that a driver might be distracted while on the road. When some drivers know, or they believe that the state or the city they have does not have a strict traffic adherence policy, and as a result of that, it helps them it allows them to feel they can get away with any form of distraction or do whatever they like in the process of driving. But when there is a strict legal measures in place, it makes it very difficult, and it helps them to keep their eyes on the road. So let's look at this video. Just it helps to emphasize just a summary of everything that I've been talking about for the past couple of minutes, just a preview. If you don't like traffic but still reach for your phone at a red light, then it's
it's time to rethink your habits. Distracted driving is one of the leading causes of accidents on the road. And it's not just texting, eating, changing the music, even talking to passengers. These are all distractions that can take your eyes off the road for just a moment too long. Just 5 seconds of looking at your phone is like driving the length of a football field blindfolded. Think about that. Your reaction time drops, your focus shifts, and suddenly you're in danger. Every year, thousands of lives are lost to distracted driving. It's not just a statistic, it could be your friend, your family, or even you. The text can wait, the call can wait. Your life and the lives of others cannot. So next time you're behind the wheel, put the phone away. Focus on the road. Because no notification is worth a life. Drive safe, stay alert, and make it home. Every single time.
Like it's been said in the video, the test can wait, the call can wait. No matter how urgent it can wait compared to risking the lives of not just yourself or the road users. Now we're going to be looking into mobile phone use while driving. And under this also it says we have different types of it. It says using a phone while driving leads to cognitive, manual, or visual distraction. I think we've already explained something similar to this earlier, the visual, the manual, and the cognitive. So in as much as we have it as a type of distraction, it's also we can also have it under the mobile phone use because it has to make use of when you're reading a text, that is the visual, your eyes is on the phone, the manual when you decide to type or hold the phone, and the cognitive is thinking about the conversation. The moment you pick up the phone to read the message, or when the message pops in, the moment you pick up the phone while driving to check the message, you're already at you are already at a point where you are endangering yourself and any other person on the road because you do not know the nature of the text. Imagine someone who is driving on a highway and the person got a text, decides to pick up the phone and check what the message is all about, and he read that he has just been fired. We know that the mental state of that person as at that time cannot be the same. The person is going to lose the faculty that is responsible for being focused on the road and driving. It's going to be lost as at that period in time. And this is the reason why it is much more safer to drop the phone because whatever it is can wait. It can wait for the few minutes or probably at the point where you know you can just drive to the nearest park or nearest station or gas station where you can just park, then do whatever you want to do, respond to any message you want to respond to, or call and your calls and every other thing that you can continue. The moment you know that there is a need for you to respond to something as soon as possible, make sure that you stop at the designated areas on the road, then respond to whatever it is, then you can continue driving. So the reaction and time and performance, I already explained this earlier. Then we have phone use increases reaction time as much as alcohol at a legal limit. We know according to Strayers and Drew 2004. We know drivers are more likely to miss traffic signals, as a result of the reaction time beauty, which is when a driver is distracted or not attentive, then drifts between lanes, rear hand or other vehicles. This has been explained earlier. Now, this point is hands-free is not the same as risk-free. Hmm. Hands-free is not the same, doesn't mean that it is risk-free. Can just think about that for a second. Hands-free is not equals to risk-free. Just because you think that okay, I'm still my eyes are still on the road, I can still drive, my phone is just it's not maybe probably I've taken all my hands off the wheel, doesn't mean that it is risk free. So you're still prone to any form of distraction, or that distraction of still having that phone even when you feel you have your hands on the steering does not necessarily mean that you're safe from any form of accident or any form of crash. So we have case examples also 2008 California train crash. It says the train engineer texting while operating led to a missed signal. That is, because of that, as a result of that text, he was able to he missed the signal, and which led to 25 people dying in the process. It set off a chain of new law on mobile phone use for commercial drivers. But does that mean that even with this happening as far back as 2008, even till 2025 now, we still have drivers still on their phones while driving? And this calls for a drastic measure that needs to be put in place for people to understand that they do not need to be on their phone while driving. We have the US crash statistics that says over 400,000 injuries annually linked to distracted driving. That is, mobile phone use cited in over 13% of all distracted related fatal crashes. That is, according to NHTSA. That is, you can see how important this concept of distraction and inattention while driving is, and how it requires the best of attention, because it amounts for about over 13%. That is huge. And if we have over 400,000 injuries as a result of this in the United States, or yearly, then it shows that there is more attention that needs to be given to this, and much more strict legal actions needs to be taken against drivers who do not adhere to this. And also the possible solutions and strategies still under the tech-based interventions. Like I said, what about if we decide to come up with a technology that can detect when a driver is on their phone while driving? I think that can also help. Educational campaigns, that is kept, the campaigns has to is a non-stop process. It's not something that needs to be done once and will feel. It has to be done, periodically, to enlighten drivers about the danger of the use of their mobile phones while driving. Then behavioral strategies also, it can wait. I think there is a particular strategy that says that, just keeping or telling yourself it can wait. Whatever it is, it can wait. When that there is that behavioral mindset in the part of the driver, knowing fully well that whatever it is that wants to make me pick up the phone can wait. It can wait. If that can wait, then definitely it doesn't have to lead to me picking up the phone. That can lead to a drastic or a greater consequences of leading to the loss of lives or injury of other road users. So that is also very important. And that is it on distraction and inattentive driving. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.